Hey, good day. This is your hillbilly historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee in Appalachia, where we bring common sense, honesty, integrity, justice, and the American way to the people. Today I want to talk about the John Birch Society. Have you ever heard of the John Birch Society? It was begun back in the 1950s by a man by the name of Robert Welch. Now, who is John Birch? John Birch supposedly is the first American murdered by communists. Now, I don't think John Birch was the first. I think he might have been the first over in Korea, murdered by communists over in Korea. But I don't believe he was the first American ever murdered by communists. Because a lot of Americans went to Russia during the Great Depression, and Stalin sent a lot of them to the gulags to work till the work killed them. And I think he had a few of them shot. Stalin was always paranoid about foreigners. But anyway, Robert Welch started the John Birch Society. And Robert Welch was a very intelligent, really cool-headed guy who opposed communism. You know, the media always made him look like a bad guy. Just like they made Joe McCarthy, World War II hero, tail gunner, on B-17 bombers in World War II. They called him tail gunner Joe McCarthy. McCarthy warned us about communism in the State Department and in the Truman administration, and the media got together and they destroyed McCarthy. And they came up with this name. They made up a name called McCarthyism to try to say this was a real bad thing, you know. But Joe McCarthy was a great American hero, but the media made him look evil, just like Robert Welch and anybody else that opposed communism, or anybody who's in favor of backing the people, like Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump was indicted 4 times. No American ever, before Trump, while president, or after being president, has ever been indicted. Truman was not indicted for dropping an atomic bomb on 2 Japanese cities. Eisenhower was never indicted for wiping out millions of Germans, especially through the 8th Air Force bombing every city in Germany. I'll tell you what, the media is evil, purely evil. You know, they attacked Ross Perot when he tried to run for president. They attacked everybody. You know, when Romney was running, they called Romney a Nazi. When John McCain was running for president, they called John McCain a Nazi. I think John McCain was worse than a Nazi. He was a left-wing rhino, anti-American rhino, who was a traitor over in Vietnam. Romney was a gutless rhino wonder, had no courage whatsoever. The media crucified him. But Romney nor McCain, neither one would tell the truth about Obama and prevent us from having Obama as president. It's, you know, the media just praised Obama constantly and put down McCain and Romney. The media is evil. You know, Richard Nixon wasn't an evil man back then. When he said he wasn't a crook, he meant it. He wasn't a crook. The crook, the heroes was not those reporters at the Washington Post, Woodward and what's his name, the Jew. They weren't heroes, but they've been made up by the media to be heroes. They were the evil ones. They were the bad guys, but they made movies. made Woodward and what's his name look like heroes, made Nixon look like the bad guy, but Nixon was the good guy. The bad guy was the Washington Post, the New York Times, ABC, NBC, and CBS. They brought down a presidency. And cowards in the Republican Party like Howard Baker Jr. and Barry Goldwater let them do it and get away with it. When we had a real crook in Washington, D.C., like Bill Clinton, who was guilty of all kinds of crimes, John Glenn, Robert Byrd, the Grand Kleagle from West Virginia, the head of the KKK, and all these people stood behind Clinton, the biggest crook in D.C., and they saved Clinton's job at the White House. But hell no. Barry Goldwater and Howard Baker Jr., they were too cowardly to stand up for Nixon. If they'd have stood up for Nixon, Nixon would have been all right. And if they had the guts, like Trump, stand up and point at the media and call them what they are, fake news, liars, crooked media, corrupt media, if they'd had courage, but they were scared of the media back then. But Trump has proved beyond a doubt how corrupt they are and how corrupt the government is and everything. And thank God we've got some people that have woke up today and have emulated the courage that Trump has shown. And now we see the media for what they really are. Garbage, liars, cheats, corrupt, crooked, liars, left-wing media. And they will push for these communists, these Democrats, DSA, and these corrupt leftists. They'll push for them to take over government, take over D.C., take over America. And that's sad. We've got to get those people out of this country, pull a rug out from under them, shut them down, remove their communication licenses, and shut them down forever. I was watching some historians trying to defend the crap that's coming out of our history museums in Washington, D.C. Our history museums have turned into agents for leftism, DEI, all that crap. It's amazing. And they are trying to attack Trump and the administration for putting a stop to this left-wing propaganda coming out of our nationally funded museums in D.C. It's absolutely horrifying, the lies these leftists will tell. They call themselves historians, but they're not. They don't know the truth. They don't know the truth about anything. One of them was whining around about Trump putting his name on the Kennedy auditorium there in D.C. And, and they were trying to demonize Trump for putting his name on there and trying to stand up for John Kennedy. I don't mind them stand up for John Kennedy, but don't sit there and lie about how Kennedy was assassinated. I was alive back then, and I know what happened. And Jesus, it's just absolutely amazing and corrupt, the media. And the John Birch Society is a perfect example. It was a great organization, anti-communist organization. But the left-wing communist-controlled media in this country has put down Robert Welch and the John Birch Society. Order the blue manual from the John Birch Society and read it. And you'll see how great they are, how strongly anti-communist they are, and how they stand up for America. But not the damn media, lying, corrupt, left-wing controlled, communist, Marxist controlled media. They're absolutely sick and terrible. So, folks, set your mind free and study the real Americans like Donald Trump and Robert Welch and Joe McCarthy and people who stood up against communism over the years. And the left-wing media are the liars, the corrupt, crooked people in this country. You got to wake up to that. But anyway, this is your hillbilly historian trying to enlighten you on the value of great anti-communist Americans like Robert Welch and the John Birch Society and Joe McCarthy, Donald Trump and people like that, Ross Perot, Sarah Palin, Ralph Reed, really, Pat Robertson, really great Americans who the media has demonized over the years. Left-wing media historians, left-wing historians in our universities. They're sick, mentally deranged people who are anti-America, anti-truth, justice, and the American way. And that's what we're in favor of. This is your hillbilly historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee here in Appalachia. You have a good July day.